Hello friends, welcome to eStudents. In this video, we will be discussing IIT JAM Biotechnology 2019 question paper and section B and C. The section A is being already discussed in the previous video and the link for that video is given in the description box. Okay, so now we will be discussing the section B first. Okay, so the first question is pick the correct statement with respect to the interconversion of topoisomerase of a circular closed double-stranded DNA. Okay, so what is a topoisomerase? So whenever the DNA here you see is replicating, it always creates a tension within the DNA. So whenever, see, this is the tension created within the DNA. Now, when this is replicating, this supercoil will get condensed, okay, and this is going to create a tension within the DNA. So, to decrease that tension within a DNA, topoisomerase molecule comes and creates a cut here and it decreases the tension here, and then here we will find a relaxed DNA. Okay, so that is a function of topoisomerase to decrease the tension. Okay, so we will understand this using a diagram. Okay, so there are two types of circle DNA which have to be relaxed. Okay, so here we have a catenated DNA. What is a catenated DNA? The two double stranded circular DNAs, when they are locked to each other, you see in this fashion, they are known as catenated DNA. So to separate this kind of catenated DNA and make it a decatenated DNA, topoisomerase 2 cuts the DNA, this double stranded DNA here. Okay, and this two gets separated, and again the re-annealing takes place in this place of the DNA. Whereas here, when there is a supercoiled DNA, the topoisomerase 2 cleaves the DNA strand, only one strand of DNA. There is a this is a double strand of DNA. Okay, so topoisomerase just cleaves a one strand of DNA, and then this DNA gets relaxed in this fashion. Okay, so in a catenated, when there is a this lockage, it has to cleave the double stranded DNA here so that this gets separated, and when there is a supercoiled DNA, there is only one strand cut here, and this always uses the topoisomerase 2 when it is cleaving this this catenated DNA. It is using an ATP molecule. Okay, so now let us see the options. Only one strand needs to be cut. This is true. Both strands have to be cut. Yes, this happens in the case of catenated DNA and this happens in the case of supercoiled DNA. No strand needs to be cut. This is absolutely wrong. When the DNA strand is not getting cut, there is no function of topoisomerase there. Okay. ATP is required for interconversion. Absolutely, we have discussed that ATP is required for that interconversion. Okay, coming to the next question now. The characteristic oxygen binding profile of hemoglobin shown below arises due to the. Okay, so first of all, we know that hemoglobin is a quaternary structure. Okay, it is made up of four heme groups. Okay, these are the four heme groups. Okay, they are alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1 and beta 2 subunits. Okay, so and here they are, each heme group is having an iron here, and these iron gets bind to the oxygen, incoming oxygen here. So whenever there is no oxygen here, then the conformation is known as the tight hemoglobin. Okay, whenever oxygen comes and binds here on the heme group, and there is a iron here, whenever it binds here, this binding of oxygen to this heme group makes the other heme group susceptible, more likely to react with another oxygen molecule. Okay, so binding of oxygen to one subunit heme group makes susceptible to the other what you call heme groups to react with the oxygen. So this phenomena is known as cooperativity, and when the oxygen is bound to these heme groups, then this becomes a relaxed hemoglobin from a tight hemoglobin. Okay, so now let us see the options here. There is a partial pressure and fraction of saturation. With increase, this is a sigmoidal curve here. So with increase in partial pressure, there is an increase of saturation. At one point, this becomes stagnant. There is no more saturation taking place. Okay, so the hemoglobin shown below arises, the sigmoidal curve arises due to quaternary structure. Yes, absolutely true. Hemoglobin is having a quaternary structure. Subunit dissociation. Let us see. Here we are seeing that when oxygen is binding, there is a change in conformation from tight to relaxed, but there is no dissociation of any subunit seen here. Alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 2, they are like that only. There is no subunit dissociation. So this is absolutely wrong. Third option is cooperativity. Yes, we have seen there is a phenomenon of cooperativity. When oxygen molecule bind, it is making another heme groups to be more likely to react with the oxygen molecule. So yes, there is a cooperativity. Okay, conformational change. Yes, when oxygen is binding here, there is a change of conformation from tight to relaxed. So yes, there is a conformation change. Okay. Now coming to the next question. The advantage of storing chemical energy in the form of starch and not as free glucose is are that it. Okay, so we know that starch is present in the plants. Okay, so plants store the energy glucose molecules in the form of starch. Okay, so they are the compact, the glucose is compact, and there is a starch present in the plants. Okay, it is a store, this is a energy present in them. Okay, so the form of starch and not as free glucose is that minimizes the diffusion. Yes, this is absolutely true. When the glucose is present individually in the cells, this increases their chances of diffusion. So when they are present in the form of starch, it is actually minimizing their diffusion. So this is the correct option. Enables compact storage. Yes, this is obvious that glucose is getting stored in a compact form, that is a starch. So this is the correct option. Reduces osmotic pressure. This is also true. Why? Because osmotic pressure is directly proportional to the solute concentration. Okay, so we know that starch is osmotically inactive. Okay, osmotically inactive. Okay, so when this is osmotically inactive, there will be no incoming of water there. Okay, so there will be no water coming, and there will be there will be less osmotic pressure within the cell. So it is actually reducing the osmotic pressure. Protects against chemical reactivity of aldehyde group. So when glucose is present individually, it is having an aldehyde group at its terminal. So that aldehyde group is more susceptible to reacting with other molecules. So but when it is present in a starch in a compact form, it is not susceptible to reacting with other molecules. It is compact, it is closed in a kind of packet. Okay, so it is protects the chemical reactivity of aldehyde groups. This is also absolutely true. So here the four options A, B, C, D are true. Now coming to the next question, which of the following cell types can develop from a myeloid lineage? So this is a very simple question. So for that we'll understand. We know that hematopoietic stem cells divide into two type of lineages within our blood cells. One is myeloid lineage and another one is the lymphoid lineage. So these lymphoid lineage again divides into two types. One is B cells and one are T cells. Okay, so these T and B cells have developed from the lymphoid lineage. So these are the wrong options. So they are asking a myeloid lineage. So all the other blood cells are derived from the myeloid lineage other than B and T cells. So macrophages and erythrocytes is the correct options which are originating from the myeloid lineage. Now coming to the next section, till now we have discussed the section B. Now we will be discussing the section C, which is actually a numerical type questions. Okay. So the first question, C3 plants utilizes 18 molecules of ATP to synthesize 1 molecule of glucose from carbon dioxide. How many molecules of ATP equivalents are used by C4 plants to synthesize 1 molecule of glucose from CO2? Okay, so in C3 plants, they are actually using 18 ATP to produce one glucose molecule. So one glucose is how many carbons? 6 carbons. Okay, so 18 ATP here. So for one carbon, how many ATP is used? So 18 divided by 6, which is going to be 3. Is the 18, yeah. So 3 ATP molecules for one carbon it is using. Okay, but in the case of C4 plants, they have asked. In the case of C4 plants, one carbon is produced by 5 ATP molecules. Here they are using 3 ATP molecules to produce one carbon, but in the case of C4 plants, they use 5 ATP to produce one carbon. So how many we have to produce one glucose molecule? So one glucose molecule is having how many carbons? 6 carbons. So 5 into 6, which is equivalent to 30 ATP. So we need 30 ATPs to produce one molecule of glucose in the case of C4 plants. Hope this is simple to you. Okay. Now coming to the next question. Heterozygous female fruit flies with a gray body and purple eyes were mated with homozygous males with black body and red eyes. Okay, so the number of offspring obtained in their phenotypes are shown below. So here there are the offsprings. 300 produce gray body, purple eyes. 347 produce black body and the red eyes. Then 61 producing gray body, red eyes, 55 black body, purple eyes. So when we observe here, these two, the gray body, purple eyes, black body, red eyes, these are the parent traits. Whereas these gray body, red eyes and black body, purple eyes, they are the new formed traits. So these are the recombinants. One way to recognize the recombinants is they are low in number, whereas the parents are high in number always. So now we need to calculate the recombination frequency. So there is a formula for calculating the recombination frequency. So recombination frequency is always equal to the number of recombinants divided by the total progeny into 100. Okay, so how many number of recombinants we are having here? We are having these two recombinants. So 61 plus 55 is going to be 116 here. And the total progeny, the total when we add all of these, we will be getting it is going to be 763. Okay, so the recombinant frequency is equal to 116 divided by 763 into 100, which is going to be equal to 15.20. So the recombinant frequency is going to be 15.20. Okay, this is a very simple question. Now coming to the next question. Proinsulin is a 684 residue polypeptide with 6 cysteines. How many different disulfide combinations are possible? So we know that cysteine always forms a bond with another cysteine via a disulfide bond. So there are 6 cysteines present. So how many combinations of disulfide bonds are possible? They are asking in the question. So we will write it down first. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 cysteines are there. So how many are possible here? So here one can bond with, here one can bond with 2, one can bond with 3, one can bond with 4, one can bond with 5, one can bond with 6. Okay, so this 2 can again bond with 3, this 2 can bond with 4, 2 can bond with 5, 2 can bond with 6. 3 can bond with 4, 3 can bond with 5, 3 can bond with 6. 4 can bond with 5, 4 can bond with 6 and 5 can bond with 6. Okay. So 1 here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So the total number of possible combination between 6 cysteines is 15. Okay. Now coming to the next question. A schematic representation of restriction fragment length polymorphism analysis of a sample population is shown below. The number of people exhibiting a given pattern is indicated in the above lanes. Okay. So now here 8 people are exhibiting these two bands. 40 are exhibiting this band, which is 5.0 and 4.0 kb. 20 are exhibiting this 7 are exhibiting this, 13 are exhibiting this kb, 12 are exhibiting this kb. So now they are asking calculate the frequency of 6.5 kb allele. Okay, so here the total number of people are how many? They are equal to 100 people here. Okay, so we have to calculate among these 100 people how many people are showing 6.5. What is the frequency of 6.5 kb allele there? Okay, so it is very simple. Here 8 people, here you see 8 people are showing 6.5 kb allele. Here you see 20 people are showing 6.5 and here 13 are showing the 6.5 allele. These three. Okay, so 20 plus 8 is 28 here. 28 plus here 13 is going to be 41. So 41 people among 100 are showing this for 6.5 kb allele. So divided by 100 we will be doing, which will be equal to 0.41. So the frequency of 6.5 kb allele is going to be 0.41. Okay, this is very simple. Okay, now coming to the next question. Phosphoglucoisomerase catalyzes the following reaction: glucose 6-phosphate to fructose 6-phosphate, and it can also catalyze the reaction fructose 6-phosphate to glucose 6-phosphate. Okay, so if 0.05% of original concentration of glucose 6-phosphate remains at equilibrium, so of the original concentration 0.05 is left at the equilibrium, then the equilibrium constant of the reaction is, okay, so from the 100%, the left concentration here is 0.05%. Okay, this is the total. Okay, and this is the remaining. So how much product is formed? This is the remaining. So from 100 we minus 0.05, that is going to be 9.95. 100 minus 0.05 we subtract, it is going to be 9.95, which is formed as a product here. Okay, so what we know the equilibrium constant is? Equilibrium constant is product by substrate. So what is the concentration of product here? 9.95%. Substrate concentration is whatever it is left, that is a substrate concentration, that is 0.05, which is going to be equal to 1999. Okay, so the equilibrium constant of this reaction is 199 and 9. Now coming to the next question. In a bacterium, a mutation resulted in an increase of Ks, substrate specific constant, for ammonium from 50 micromoles to 5000 micromoles without affecting the mu max. The specific growth rate mu of a mutant growing on 0.5 millimoles ammonium in the medium decreases by the factor of. So to solve this question we have one formula. Okay, so that formula is mu is equal to mu max into substrate divided by Ks plus substrate. Okay, so here we know that here mu max, which is given as constant, where it is for ammonia without affecting, okay, so without affecting mu max, so this is actually constant, so we will take this as 1. Okay, so here the substrate concentration, so the substrate concentration mutant growing on 0.5 millimolar ammonium medium. Okay, so this substrate concentration is 0.5 millimoles. So what is Ks here? Actually there are two Ks given, before the mutation and one is after the mutation. Okay, so we have to calculate both. First we have to calculate before the mutation and then we are going to calculate after the mutation, and the difference between the two is going to give us the value of the mu. Okay, that will show us by what factor it has decreased. Okay, so now let us solve this. So mu is equal to 1 into substrate concentration. Here it is given millimoles and then we are going to convert it into the moles. Okay, so it is going to be 0.5 into 10 to the power minus 3 moles divided by Ks. First we are taking the before mutation, that is 50 into 10 to the power minus 6 plus substrate concentration is 0.5 into 10 to the power minus 3 moles, which will give 0.0005 divided by 0.00005 plus 0.0005. Then when we solve this, we'll be getting 0.0005 divided by 0.00055, and the answer is going to be 0.90. So this is the mu before mutation. Okay, now we will see what is happening after the mutation. Okay, so now we will substitute in this formula only 1 into, so this is mu max, which is 1, which is constant, which is not changing here without affecting the mu max here. So 1 into 0.5 into 10 to the power minus 3 moles divided by, after mutation here it is given 5000 micromoles. So we are converting into the moles now. So 500 into 10 to the power minus 6 into 0.5 into 10 to the power minus 3. Now this will give us 0.5 into 10 to the power minus 3 divided by 0.005 into, sorry, this is plus actually, yeah, 0.005. Now when we solve this, we will be getting 0.0005 divided by 0.0055. Now this is going to be equal to 0.09. Now this is approximately nearer to 1 and this is nearer to 0.1, and then when we get the difference of these both, we will be getting this is after mutation. Okay, this is after mutation. Then when we divide these both, we are going to get the difference of 10 factors. Okay, so the answer is 10. The mutant growing on 0.5 millimoles ammonium in a medium decreased by the factor of 10 here. Okay, so hope this is clear too. Now the next question, the total number of DNA molecules present after 5 cycles of polymerase chain reaction starting with 3 molecules of template DNA is. Okay, so here they have given that there are 3 molecules of DNA here. Okay, so now they are going through a PCR cycle 5 times. So how many DNA molecules are produced? Okay, so we know that this is going to produce 2, this is going to produce 2, and this is going to produce 2 after one cycle. So 2, 4, 6. So this is for after the first cycle we have 6 DNA molecules. After second, we are going to have 6 into 2, 12. After third cycle, we will be having about 24. After fourth cycle, we will be having like 48. After fifth cycle, we will be having 96. So now because this is a 5 cycles only, we were able to calculate it by using our logic. But what if they have given that we have to calculate after like 70 cycles or 75 cycles? It is a huge number, right? So we cannot calculate in this way. So we have a formula for calculating when there is a large number of PCR cycles given. Okay, so the formula is n naught into 2 to the power n, where n naught is equal to the number of DNA molecules. Okay, and the n is equal to the number of PCR cycles. Okay, so here let's calculate n naught. What is the n naught here? The number of DNA molecules. How many DNA molecules are there here? 3. 3 into 2 to the power, how many PCR cycles? 5. That is going to be equal to 3 into 32. which is equivalent to 96. So this is how we calculate when it is given a high number of PCR cycles. Okay, so this is all about section B and section C. So if you like the video, please hit that thumbs up button and please subscribe to our channel for more videos. Thank you.